What's up, everybody? Randy here doing an SPL power ranking video. SPL starts again tomorrow, and it's our last split before World Championship happens. So I'm gonna rank these teams as if I'm ranking them on their chance to win the World Championship. So number eight's gonna have the toughest time, and number one is my pick to win the World Championship as of right now. So without any further ado, let's get going. At number eight, we have the Guilty Gladiators. To no surprise, they've just been the weakest looking team so far. Even with all these changes that they've had, I still don't see them making the development needed to really make a world run this year. But if it happens, they need Kana to really step it up, become an SPL caliber player faster than maybe anyone else has besides Paul and Sanford Soccer. Um, so yeah, from the solo lane, they really need Kana to somehow just come in guns blazing, run the meta, and really be a top solo laner. Snoopy needs to also return to form, like his Cog Red days when he was winning lane, doing really good late game plays, relics on point. Those things really need to happen for Snoopy and Gladiators to want to win. And also, Kirimi just needs to become a top two jungler. He's already really close. I would say he's in the top four, but he really needs to put it in an upper echelon, win all the 1v1s he can, know when to take 1v1s, when to let it go, when to split push, when he can steal camps. I really think he's going to be one of the best junglers in the world at some point, but he really needs to step it up right now if he wants his team to win worlds. But as I said, not super likely. I really enjoy the players on this team, watching them play, but I don't think worlds is in it for him this year. Now, at number seven, we have the Elder Towns. I actually think this team has a chance. Obviously, Neil Ma is a little rusty since he's been coaching for the first half of the year, but I think if he can get past that stage and really provide leadership and guidance to this team, then they can really make a run for it at the World Championship. I think this phase is going to really need to be building for them, figuring out what picks work for them, how they want to play. Are they going to be early game, late game, little in between? Also, their late game sieges need to improve. That was a really sore spot on them the last split and the last tournament that we had. They would do so good, and then just like a few mistakes late game really cost their games when they should be winning them at that point. But if they can shore up those things, they'll be really good. And also, I know it's Oath has a tendency to farm early game as opposed to ganking, and sometimes junglers can take advantage of that and like bully the lanes out for the hounds, and that can really put a damper on the rest of their game. So I think if Oath can be a little more active early, or if the lanes can at least be aware of the fact that they're going to be ganked when they are ganked, it can really help this team to improve. All right, on to number six. We have the Camelot Kings. This really hurts to put them here. They're my favorite team. I have a Captain Twig jersey, but after the change and how they've been playing lately, it's just hard to argue that they're higher than this. The biggest things for this team to improve are Quig needing to settle into his environment. Four different people that he's playing with as opposed to on the Hounds. Really figure out how to communicate with these players, how to play off them, how to pick with them. What picks and bans are going to work good for this team, because obviously, like Captain Twig and Oath are super different junglers, so they're going to pick different characters. So knowing what gods go well with his new teammates will really be important, and just communicating and camaraderie in general is probably a good thing to build upon for this team. Also, consistency from their laners. I've noticed that the Kings have a little bit of inconsistency, specifically in the side lanes. Yarkor is pretty solid, but Variety especially can stink up a lane every once in a while. But I think if they can get over that and really just win lanes or keep them even, then they can be in better positions, as opposed to when Variety's a few levels behind. Happened to Yarkor too. BMT is a little bit better about it, but he also doesn't really output much pressure whenever he's ahead or even. But I think if the lanes can all be consistent and good, that this team will be a lot better off for it. And also getting Twig the right picks. There's some picks that Twig can be on and just not really do it for me, but certain times, like on the Hoonbats, he can really carry a game, carry team fights, be just a general threat to the enemy team. But sometimes, he picks Lancelot and things don't go too well. I know Lancelot's not super meta right now, but it just depends on like what's good when the World Championships happen. Like that'll determine what picks Twig will want. And if Twig can get those picks, then I really think he can carry the team, or at least facilitate the team to win a lot easier. All right, enough about the Kings. Let's go on to number five, Highland Ravens. This is right after Zapman got put on this team. This was literally yesterday. This news was announced, so I'm still a little shocked. I probably would have had the rankings the same either way, but I think for them to improve, they really need Zapman to find his role in the team as far as picks, how he's going to communicate. You know, is he just going to be the late game shot caller? Is he going to help call the map early and mid game? Figuring out just exactly what niche he's going to fill is going to be super important for this team. And also, Scream needs to start cooking. You know, the team's been a little mid. They've had ups and downs, some good showings, but like specifically tournament time, they haven't been looking too good. I think it's because Scream isn't cooking enough. He goes like these full tank builds, which, or at least mostly tank builds, which they look good, but then they don't have enough damage to really finish anyone off, so people get off at 1 HP. He needs to go back to what he was doing on the Jade Dragons when he first got picked up last year, just going full damage and murderizing the enemy. You know, maybe go 1 or 2 defense items to really exacerbate your lead, but I just think he needs to go back to the old school style. Maybe that's not as good anymore. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think he needs to cook, but within a certain menu, if that makes sense. And lastly, Hurrywood needs to find his wind. He's been a good support player, but he's not been a great support player. I think if he can really step up his game, figure out what picks works best for him in this meta, then he will be a force to be reckoned with and really make the Ravens a tougher team. But right now, he's middle of the pack as far as like support rankings. So if he can really step it up, then this team will be way better and way scarier. All right, at number 4, we have the Atlantis Leviathans. In all fairness, I just want to say this top 4 is pretty tight, so it was a little tough putting Leviathans at number 4, but I think it's deserved based on their performance in history so far. But to win Worlds, they need to focus on Panda Cat. That's why I have Panda Panda written here. I think Panda Cat's going to be a huge part of this team if they're going to win. They're going to have to play through the lane, or at least late game fights are going to be won by Panda Cat a lot of the time when they're winning, I believe. So they just really need to Panda Cat get comfortable with the team, comfortable back in the SPL, and be facilitated so that they can really rely on him when it counts. And also, Fine OK needs to be a little better than OK. He's been fine. He's been okay. We need him to be good and better, I guess. What I'm just trying to say is he's been a little adequate, and I just need him to be above average for this team to really shine. I think he's close. I think it's just a picks and like communication thing. He's not really sure about what's the best call in a lot of situations, but he's been doing really good, and I think just stepping it up to that next level, which I feel like I keep repeating myself, just step it up to the next level, become that world championship level solo laner, and then the team will really have a strong boon in Fine OK. And lastly, adapting needs to get rolling. He needs to cook like Scream was, you know? Picking the hyper carry junglers, farming, getting the late game, and then just like dominating team fights, getting picks, winning the 1v1s, those sort of things. If he can look like Season 2 and Season 3 adapting, this team is going to be unstoppable. If everyone's on the ball in this team, they're like my favorite team to win the World Championship, but I just haven't seen it all put together. Panda Cat had a few sets the last weekend or so at the kickoff tournament, but I'm going to have to see how he does in the regular season and to really see where this team's at. Number 3, the Jade Dragons. They got second place at the kickoff tournament, but they're at number 3 right now. Simply because I think they're a little inconsistent around tournament time. They'll do so good and then just won't be able to close out. And some of their picks are a little confusing to me, at least. So their keys to victory are going to be keeping their drafts dynamic but simple. Jade Dragons have some of my favorite drafting in the SPL. They'll do some really good things. They'll flex some picks that other teams won't flex. They'll play some picks that other teams won't pick, like the Hera. But sometimes they get a little over their head with the craziness, and I think just to lose the forest for the trees, so to think, or lose the trees for the forest, however it goes. And they'll just they'll pick a draft that's a little confusing to everyone. The casters, the other team, the viewers, everyone's a little confused on what they're doing. So I think if they can just cut down on that just a little bit, but keep their spice, you know, keep the Hera, keep flexing like Raijin and other things that teams aren't flexing, and they'll be really good because of that, I believe. And also winning through mid lane. When Dardas has good games, the team has good games. So if Dardas can keep getting the picks he wants, be facilitated by Mike and Lasbro, then this team's going to be really, really good. And lastly, is they're going to have to clutch up. This team, specifically Nika, Vote, Dardas, are notorious for being reverse swept. So I think they just need to get that out of their head. Keep their mental up, play the game, win the games, because they can win the game super easily if they really put their minds to it and not get overwhelmed by the pressure. But I think in spite of all their fallings in the past, this is a good shot for them to really win Worlds this year. And I hope in the regular season we'll see their improvements that they made. In second place, we got the Styx Ferryman. Uh, this is my favorite team to win Worlds, honestly, at the beginning of the year at least. But now things have changed with how good the Oni Warriors have looked. But I still think Styx Ferryman are a force to be reckoned with. Just looking at their talent, almost every player on their team's been considered the best in their role at least at some point. Cyclone Spin's been considered the best in multiple roles. Baskin is obviously one of the greatest of all time. Aurora's arguably the best support player, and Paul's arguably the best player of all time. So I know it's a little funny, but he was a support not support the MVP for Splice when they won the World Championship. So he's obviously a very, very good player, despite all of his weird picks that people seem to question. He knows what he's doing. The team knows what they're cooking, and they have a really good chance at Worlds this year to really make it their year. I think they need to make their meta. They need to create some picks that other people aren't really using, like Aurora's Ganesh at the season 1 tournament that we had a few months ago. You know, just really bring those picks into the meta that other people don't know how to play against as well, or haven't practiced as well, and really control picks and bans because of that. I think that's a really good thing that this team can do, is just pull out some picks that other teams don't really know what to do against, and or at least haven't had recent practice against or with, and then they'll just ride the momentum from the unexpectedness, and also not falling behind in early games. This team's probably biggest weakness is that they'll sometimes just get ganked, or like Aurora will fall behind, and then just they won't be able to come together to really form a good fight around Fire Giants and Gold Furies, and then just fall behind and lose. So I think if they can really tone down on that, they're gonna be able to have a really good chance at Worlds. And overall, second favorite team to win Worlds. They don't have a lot to worry about. Like, of course, there's improvements to be made for every team, but they're super good. Everything I'm saying is like minor in hindsight. But yeah, let's go on to Oni Warriors, number 1 team. They just look so good. They've lost 1 set since their conception, and then they made a change immediately to get the best support player in the league right now. So it's really hard to go against them. They looked a little iffy at the kickoff tournament this past weekend or 2 weekends ago, but I think in spite of that, they're still the best team. Like they won the whole tournament. They looked pretty good in a lot of games. Only a few games looked iffy, but I think they're finding their footing also with Genetics. You know, Genetics is obviously a very different support than Jake, so they're gonna play differently, communicate differently, pick a little differently. And so to ride their wave of success, I think they need to keep up the pressure, you know, keep up being an early game team, finding the early kills, being better in lane, just winning because of that. Panatom doing his stuff, stealing jungle camps, getting kills when he can. Also, they're going to need to follow their new leader in Genetics, you know. If the team splits up and has weird calls, they're not going to succeed. I don't think it's going to be a problem for them, but it's just a point to make, you know. Listen to Genetics, as long as Genetics is making good calls, which he should be since he's the best support, but as long as things go well in that department, it'll be really good for the team. And also, just have fun. I think the team can get a little in their heads. Just, I don't really have any evidence for this, but I feel like being at the top, you can really hyper-analyze all your mistakes, but I think if the team can have fun and come into Worlds with like a good mindset, not all the pressure in the world on them, they'll have a really good chance to win the World Championship, which they already do, being the best team in the league. So that was it. Those are my power rankings. Let me know what you think. If you have any different thoughts about who's going to win or who's not going to win. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.